They called it a campaign of discipline and order, Rome marching once again to bring civilization to the wild frontiers. But history would remember it as the day pride met its end beneath the rain-soaked trees of the Teutoburg forest. At the height of its power, the Roman Empire believed itself unstoppable. Its legions had conquered mountains, deserts, and kingdoms that once seemed eternal. Every march ended in triumph, every rebellion in submission. Yet in the misty heart of Germania, Rome would face an enemy it never truly understood. Not just the tribes who fought with rage and cunning, but the very land itself, vast and untamable. This is the story of how trust turned into betrayal, how thunder and mud swallowed the world's greatest army, and how the echo of that defeat changed the course of history. It is not merely the tale of a battle lost, but of a civilization forced to confront its own limits. Because in Teutoburg, Rome didn't just lose legions, it lost its illusion of invincibility. And from that shattered pride rose a new empire, more cautious, more calculating, and forever haunted by the forest that broke its soul. Before we continue this journey through the story that changed Rome's destiny, let me ask you a quick favor, but one that makes all the difference. Take a second to check if you're already subscribed to the channel. That way, you won't miss the next videos, because an epic series is coming, filled with battles, betrayals, and secrets that shaped the greatest empire of the ancient world. Hit the bell, leave a like, and join me to uncover, in a cinematic and powerful way, how Rome built its glory, and how pride led to its fall. I still remember the sound of the trumpets echoing that morning, when dew covered the damp soil of the Germanic forests. We marched with confidence, believing that no army could stand against the might of Rome's legions. I was only a centurion among thousands, but I could feel the weight of the pride we all carried, the same pride that would soon be crushed in that hell of trees, rain, and blood. The maps we were given showed safe routes, drawn by native guides. Commander Publius Quinctilius Varus believed he was among allies. The Germanic tribes had sworn loyalty to the empire, and everything seemed under control. The muddy roads, the dark skies, the dense forest, none of it seemed a threat. They were merely obstacles, as usual in distant campaigns. But there was something strange about that silence. No birds sang, and even the footsteps of the soldiers felt muffled. I remember glancing around and seeing tense faces, hardened men, now uneasy for reasons they couldn't explain. The ground sank with every step, the wagons got stuck, and the formation began to break apart. Still, we marched. Rome feared no one. Then I realized the mistake. The narrow terrain prevented us from forming proper lines, as we did on open ground. The forest surrounded us like a natural trap, and the rain turned the soil into a swamp. Shields slipped, armor became heavy, and Varus's orders drowned in chaos. At that moment, we still didn't know that we were marching straight into a perfectly planned ambush. But something, perhaps a soldier's instinct, whispered that something was terribly wrong. And that feeling would be confirmed when the man we trusted the most, our Germanic guide and ally of Rome, revealed his true face. His name was Arminius. To us, he was a trusted ally, a Germanic warrior who had grown up under Rome's protection, educated in our schools, trained in our legions, and honored with Roman citizenship. I remember how he walked among us with the bearing of a true Roman commander, flawless armor, steady eyes, words that inspired confidence. None of us doubted him. After all, he knew both worlds, the barbarian tribes and the Roman system. He was the perfect bridge between them, or so we thought. Arminius spoke with calm authority. He convinced Varus that the Germanic tribes were restless but obedient. He claimed we needed to act fast, to march and suppress the rebellion before it spread. And we believed him. The trust was total, almost blind. Whenever someone questioned the chosen route, he answered firmly. He knew the land better than anyone. In the early days of the march, he disappeared from time to time, saying he had to negotiate with local leaders ahead. He always returned with reassuring news. And so, step by step, he led us deeper into the forest, farther from civilization, closer to the jaws of death. Now looking back, I see how everything was calculated. Every narrow pass, every muddy hill, every ravine that limited our movement, all part of his design. Arminius knew exactly where our formations would collapse, where our spears would be useless, and where the forest itself would become our prison. On the third afternoon, he left again, saying he would bring reinforcements. That was the last time we saw him wearing Roman insignia. When the sky darkened and the wind began to howl, the first screams came from the trees, not cries for help, but war cries. And leading them, his eyes burning with rage and vengeance, was Arminius, now dressed as a barbarian chieftain. In that instant, the world fell apart. The man who had sworn loyalty to Rome was leading our enemies. As the forest exploded with fury, I realized we were not facing savages, but a mind that understood Rome and had turned that knowledge into a weapon. The first legionaries fell, and terror spread faster than any arrow. Rome, for the first time in centuries, had been deceived by one of its own. The Teutoburg forest didn't seem part of the same world. The sun barely pierced the dense canopy, and the rain turned the ground into a swamp. The wind moaned through the twisted branches, and the smell of wet earth mixed with blood. It was there, in that living labyrinth, that Rome's greatness collapsed into despair. The legions tried to regroup, but the terrain made it impossible. Our discipline, the very essence of Roman strength, was useless. Spears tangled in branches, shields slipped, and our banners disappeared into the fog. Screams echoed from all sides, yet no one knew from where. Every tree hid an enemy. Every shadow was death waiting to strike. The barbarians emerged like ghosts, then vanished again. Arminius had united dozens of tribes that once hated each other, now bound by the same goal, to annihilate Rome. They attacked in short bursts, ambushes, retreats, ambushes again, cutting us down piece by piece. Arrows rained from above, and the entire forest seemed alive, breathing vengeance. Varus tried to restore order, shouting commands drowned by thunder and panic. "Form the lines. Hold position," he cried, but there were no lines left, only chaos. Each man fought alone, driven by instinct, not command. Horses reared in terror. Centurions fell trying to rally their men. When night came, the torches died under the storm, and darkness swallowed everything. By dawn, the ground was covered with corpses and shattered shields. The clashing of steel was gone, only silence remained. Those who tried to retreat found the roads blocked with fallen trees and traps. Supplies were burned, wagons destroyed. The enemy had planned every detail. Each step we took was part of their trap. And the worst of all, the man behind that trap had once been one of us. The forest became a grave. Some soldiers took their own lives rather than be captured. Others begged for mercy, but mercy didn't exist there. By the end, the eagles of Rome, symbols of divine power, lay broken in the mud. That day, we didn't just lose a battle. We lost the illusion that Rome was invincible. When the news reached Rome, the world stopped. The letters brought by the few survivors, stained with mud and blood, carried a truth too unbearable to speak aloud. 3 entire legions were gone. Emperor Augustus received the news in his palace and turned pale. He walked in circles, hitting his head against the wall, muttering the same words again and again. "Varus, give me back my legions." He couldn't accept that the empire ruling the world had been destroyed by the very people it called savages. The shock was immense. Until then, Rome believed itself destined to rule forever, its power, its order, its gods unchallenged. But Teutoburg shattered that illusion. The defeat wasn't only military, it was spiritual. For the first time, Rome saw itself as mortal. In the marketplaces, people whispered about the disaster. Veterans walked with their heads down. Senators avoided even mentioning Varus's name. He, unable to bear the disgrace, took his own life on the battlefield. A Roman general choosing death over humiliation. Fear spread to the empire's borders. The tribes beyond the Rhine grew bold, and within Rome, the Senate erupted in panic. Some demanded vengeance, others urged caution. For the first time, Rome admitted it could not conquer everything. To ordinary citizens, the loss felt divine, as if the gods had turned their backs. Temples performed sacrifices to appease Mars and Jupiter. And Augustus, once the image of calm authority, became haunted by nightmares of the lost legions. Even centuries later, the shadow of Teutoburg lingered. It wasn't just the territory that was lost. It was faith in Rome's own destiny. That defeat carved a scar into the empire's soul, one that time could never fully heal. The defeat in Teutoburg Forest didn't end when the last legionary fell. It continued to live inside Rome, reshaping its military and political identity. The empire that once believed in endless conquest now turned inward, cautious and defensive. The legions destroyed, the 17, 18, and 19, were never rebuilt. Their numbers were erased from records, as if their very names carried a curse. Rome had never erased its own history before, but this wound was too deep to face. The Senate demanded action. Emperor Augustus reinforced the borders along the Rhine and Danube. Expansion into Germania was abandoned. Rome, once a machine of conquest, began building walls, forts, and watchtowers. The new command was clear: protect, not invade. Years later, Augustus's nephew, Germanicus, led massive campaigns to avenge the defeat. He crossed the Rhine with tens of thousands of soldiers, burning villages and hunting down Arminius. He recovered 2 of the lost eagles, restoring part of Rome's honor. But even he realized the truth: the forests could not be conquered. Every village destroyed gave birth to 3 more rebels. The terrain devoured armies, and winter finished what the tribes began. So Rome changed. Instead of chasing endless wars, it built a system of defense, the Limes Germanicus, a vast line of fortifications marking the edge of the civilized world. Beyond it lay chaos. The frontier itself became a symbol, the wall that separated empire from wilderness. Politically, the disaster tightened imperial control. The Senate lost power to the emperor. Distrust spread among commanders. No longer would Rome train foreigners to lead its legions. Arminius had proven how dangerous loyalty could be. Rome grew colder, harder. Its diplomacy turned suspicious, its armies more cautious. The dream of total domination died in that forest. In its place rose a new idea: survival through control. From that day on, generals would look at maps and know there are lands Rome will never own, places where its power ends, and the unknown begins. Teutoburg marked the moment when Rome stopped expanding outward and began defending itself from within. Centuries passed, but the echo of that disaster never faded. The Teutoburg Forest was not only the grave of 3 legions, it was a turning point that broke the pride of Rome and reminded the world that even the greatest empire can bleed. For historians, it became an obsession. Some blamed Varus's arrogance. Others called Arminius a genius of betrayal. But the truth was simpler. Teutoburg revealed that power is not built solely on armies, but also on knowledge, cunning, and unity. The defeat marked the limit of Rome's expansion. Germania remained beyond its grasp, the forest between the Rhine and the Elbe becoming an invisible barrier between order and chaos. When Roman generals looked north, they no longer saw glory. They saw the shadow of Teutoburg. Arminius became legend. To Rome, he was a traitor. To the Germanic tribes, a hero of freedom. His name lived on for centuries, whispered in the songs of warriors who would one day bring down the empire he defied. Without intending to, Rome had created its own nemesis, the eternal symbol of resistance. In Rome, poets wrote about the day the eagles fell, and senators debated the meaning of pride and destiny. Even during future triumphs, the ghost of Teutoburg lingered, a quiet reminder that arrogance always precedes the fall. But the deepest legacy was invisible: prudence. Rome ceased to be a reckless conqueror and became a careful guardian of its own stability. The age of builders replaced the age of warriors. Aqueducts, roads, fortifications, all born from fear, not ambition. Teutoburg taught Rome that glory without balance is the seed of ruin. Today, the forests that devoured the legions are silent again. The wind still moves between those trees, whispering to the earth that swallowed Rome's pride. Even empires must fear the impossible. Teutoburg didn't destroy Rome, it changed it. That loss, more than any victory, defined the empire's true endurance. Because sometimes, only by falling can a civilization understand the weight of its own greatness. The video tells the story of the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, the moment when Rome's pride was shattered by betrayal and blood. Guided by Arminius, a Germanic warrior trained by Rome who secretly plotted revenge, 3 Roman legions marched into a deadly trap. Surrounded by rain, mud, and forest, they were annihilated, and the empire faced a humiliation it could never erase. From Augustus's despair to Rome's shift from conquest to defense, the video reveals how one ambush changed the course of history, transforming the unstoppable empire into one that finally learned the limits of its own power. And now that you've seen how pride brought an empire to its knees, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you had been there that day? Would you have trusted Arminius or sensed the betrayal before it struck? Tell me in the comments below. I'm reading them all. If this story moved you, leave your like. It helps this channel grow and brings more epic tales like this to you. And of course, subscribe and activate the bell, because the next episode will take you even deeper into the battles, secrets, and decisions that shaped the fate of Rome. Stay tuned, because history always returns, and the next chapter is coming. See you in the next video.